The Celtics played a preseason game over the weekend, and I still think it was a mistake to play Jaylen Brown. Plus, Noah Vonleh, is he going to get some minutes? Is he going to earn a spot with this team? And I dip into the mailbag to answer the question about the Celtics not arguing with the refs and a whole lot more right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. And I'm here for you every day with a free, fresh podcast for you Monday through Friday. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. You can also watch the show on YouTube. I would love it if you subscribe there. I want to thank you for making this show your first listen every day and part of your daily routine. I'm John Karalis, former professional basketball player. Now I'm a credentialed beat writer covering the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, and I've written about a book. It's a book, not a balk, a book called the Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. Today on the show, I'll spend most of it answering your questions. I'm going to spend the first segment talking about a couple of things from the preseason game on Friday night, which really, honestly, it was like all right, yeah, Celtics. They sat everybody except for Jaylen Brown, which I'll get into that in a second. But the real story out of this was Noah Vonleh. I think he was the standout guy. The Charlotte Hornets, I think the other big story, they suck. The Charlotte Hornets, I'm sorry, man. They were trying to win this game. The Charlotte Hornets were trying to win the game. The Celtics sat Tatum, Brogdon, who else did they set? Horford. Marcus Smart, I'm missing somebody. The regulars, except for Jaylen Brown. So it was the second unit plus the end of the bench guys, and the Hornets came out and started strong, and then they sucked. They couldn't beat the Celtics. Celtics outscored them by like 20 in the second and third quarters. It was not good. If at this point, Charlotte should just join the tank fest for Wembanyama, because they're just not going anywhere the way they're constituted. Trade Rozier, trade Hayward, trade whatever. But anyway, listen to Locked On Hornets if you care about that. The big thing for me, and it's funny, I tweeted out somewhere around halftime that I just didn't get the Noah Vonleh thing. I didn't get why why he was getting this inside track. I didn't understand. Everything that I'd seen looked bad. And especially in the first half of that game, I thought Vonleh looked bad in the first half of that game, and he was like a -5. And remember, the Celtics outscored Charlotte by a significant amount in the second quarter, and Vonleh was still like a -5 in the first half. And I thought that was a legitimate number. I know in-game plus minus is really messy, but I thought in that first half he drops so much in the pick and roll coverage. I just didn't understand why he was dropping so. He gives drivers so much space, and I don't know if that's the Celtics' plan. I don't think that's the plan, but he keeps doing it. And it felt like in the first quarter, every time Charlotte scored, it was around Noah Vonleh. And yeah, he made some nice plays offensively, which is kind of works. That kind of, tracks with Vonleh's career. Yeah, he's going to get you some points. He's going to score, but defensively he was kind of, But then in the second half, I thought he picked it up, and, he revealed in practice on Sunday that he had a hamstring injury coming into camp at the beginning of last month, or the beginning of this month, I should say. And that I feel like that might have caused some of the issues. So, okay, now that I have a little bit of new information, I can say, all right, so maybe it just took a little bit of time. He hasn't played an NBA game in a long time. He spent last season in China. Okay, I'll cut him some slack. But for the first 2.5 games, he has not been good. But in the second half, he was much, much better. I will say, I'll push back on some of the things, the post-game coverage, where, you listen to Scal and you listen to the guys in the studio and you listen to everything. They're like, oh, what a great game by Vonleh. It wasn't a great game by Vonleh. He had a great second half. In the first half, it was still messy. I don't know if this is just going to fall under, and probably will just fall under he's going to be like the end of the bench anyway. So I probably should calm down a bit about this. He's going to get some minutes early on. Luke Kornet is only just getting back on the floor. And I know that was plan A. We're going to get one preseason game with Kornet and the starters. I think everybody's going to play on Friday when the Celtics face Toronto again. And that's going to give us our first look at what I think the actual starting five is going to be, which will be Tatum, Brown, Smart, Horford, and Kornet. And we'll get to see if that works. And they'll get into the beginnings of making that lineup work. We'll see if that goes the way the Celtics hope, then that minimizes the need for Vonleh. And then he just slides a little deeper into the emergency role. And if Blake Griffin, you didn't sign Blake Griffin, I think, not to play him. So if he shows himself and he made his debut, he was okay. Nothing special. He started slow and built himself up kind of in 16 minutes, what it took Vonleh, kind of like the same story. Start real slow, committed an offensive foul right away, and then hit a three, but started to move the ball. He had 4 assists, rebounded well. I think he had 9 rebounds. It was a nice, fine debut for Blake Griffin. If he shows up and can play 12, 15 minutes, that minimizes the need for Vonleh. So if Vonleh ends up getting that spot, fine. That's fine. So I will. This is kind of like my announcement. I'm not gonna get on Vonleh for too much anymore, because I realize, like, yes, he started out like terribly. I probably should have cut him a little bit more slack. And considering the role that he's ultimately going to get, it doesn't matter much. What did matter to me, and I got some blowback. I'm surprised at the blowback I got on Twitter. I wrote a column that said the Celtics narrowly avoided disaster with a poor decision to play Jaylen Brown. And I stand by the column for a couple of reasons. First, most importantly, he was the only starter playing. So with no regulars out there, he's the only one out there with a bunch of guys who haven't played together, groups that haven't played together. It just makes things a little bit more chaotic against a chaotic team. There was a play where he went up for a 3-pointer. Kelly Oubre closed out too hard and jumped, and his foot was in Jalen's landing space, and he got called for the foul. Jaylen somehow, either he barely clipped Oubre's leg or he splayed his feet. Somehow he avoided landing on Oubre's foot, but only by an inch. And that play, when I say they narrowly avoided disaster, that play is what I'm talking about. It is undeniable that Jaylen Brown came within an inch of landing on Kelly Oubre's foot. And who knows what could happen there. It can range from, okay, sometimes people land on somebody's foot and it's nothing. Or sometimes people land on somebody's foot and they break their ankle. So you've got a range of nothing to broken ankle. Either way, even if it was just a sprained ankle, you're putting Jaylen Brown at injury risk. He's too damn important to this team to be putting him out there. If the plan was, we're going to sit everybody, all the regulars, this is your day off, and Jaylen came up with hey, I want to play, I want to keep my rhythm, That's literally what Joe Mazzulla said. He wanted to keep his rhythm, which I don't buy that at all. Jaylen Brown came into the season after 3 months off in the off season and was in rhythm in game 1. So you didn't need this preseason game to keep your rhythm. Keep your rhythm in practice. Keep your rhythm in drills. But that's a side note. Jaylen is not supposed to be the guy who makes his decisions. He's supposed to want to play. He's supposed to want to talk his way into the lineup. I have no qualms about Jaylen trying to talk his way in, but the plan was to sit all these guys. Stick to the plan. There's a reason why this is the plan. Because when you look at the schedule in November, which is only a couple of weeks away, we're 8 days away from the season opener. Look at that November schedule. You're playing 3 games in 4 nights every week. Why put 25 minutes of wear and tear on Jaylen Brown's legs unnecessarily? Why put him at injury risk unnecessarily? That's my point. I thought it was a poor decision by Mazzulla to let Jaylen Brown play, to let him talk him into playing. The blowback I got where people were like, well, I guess players aren't supposed to want to play. It's not about Jaylen. It's about the coach. Yeah, Jaylen is supposed to want to play. The decision to let him play in the third preseason game of the season, when the whole plan was we're going to sit the regulars, didn't sit well with me. And then, so that's one thing. The decision didn't sit well with me. And then they narrowly avoided disaster when he almost landed on Oubre's foot. My take is simply that was a bad decision to play him. It was a poor decision. And then they got away with it because he was literally 1 inch away from getting hurt. And I'll tell you, if Jaylen landed on Oubre's foot and got hurt and missed 4 weeks with a sprained ankle, everybody would be killing Mazzulla. Everybody would be killing Mazzulla right now saying, why was Jaylen Brown even in that game? Guaranteed, and you know it, I know it, everybody knows it. Sports talk radio, TV, podcasts, they would have been like, why was Jaylen even in there? And now he's out for a month. Just because the result was fine doesn't mean the decision was good. Poor decisions that lead to good results are still poor decisions. You can get lucky sometimes. So that's it. I got some pushback, I think from a lot of people who saw the headline and didn't read the article and didn't reference the play that I was talking about. And I felt like since I have the podcast here, I get to explain a little bit of it. Nothing against Jaylen at all. 0 against Jaylen Brown. 0. Because he's supposed to want to play. He's supposed to try to convince the coach that he wants to stay in rhythm. He's supposed to want to do that. So fine. Players are supposed to make rash decisions that aren't in their best interest because they're players and they want to play. It's up to the coach. It's up to Joe Mazzulla to say, Jaylen, love you, buddy. No, you just take a rest, calm down, take the rest, and be done with it. I'll go with this. Remember the story about Kevin Garnett when he was in a practice with, Doc Rivers, and he said, KG, you're sitting out today. And KG didn't want to sit. And Doc was like, you're sitting out, whatever. And they were running practice. In the story, Leon Poe tells the story. They look over and they see KG. When Leon, because Leon was in for KG, when Leon went for a rebound, KG mimicked the rebound. And when Leon made a pass, KG was mimicking the pass. And he was on the sidelines because he didn't want to sit. And he was mimicking everything to the point where Doc was like, if you don't sit down, practice is over. And he didn't sit. And Doc said, that's it. Practice is over. We're done. We're done because KG didn't want to sit down today. And I think that's actually the type of good decision. Now, obviously, it's a different situation. KG was older in that situation and everything. But that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes you got to save a player from themselves. That's all. So, and that's it. I'm not like pissed off about it or anything like that. I just want to explain my positioning better than responding to tweets and comments and all of that stuff. That's my position. I don't think that's outrageous to say your star player or one of your 2 star players is too important to risk in a situation where you sat everybody else out. And then on top of that, he almost got hurt and you're lucky that he didn't get hurt on a play like that. Cause the rule is there because people keep getting hurt on plays like that. All right. That's it. That's done. Mailbag Monday. That's coming up next. Questions about Grant Williams in the small ball lineups, zone defense, Jaylen Brown, the coach, all sorts of questions coming up next. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. I grew up in small businesses. I know exactly how important the right hires are to the small business. My dad was a small business owner. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps not fight. This isn't Draymond Green Jobs. This is LinkedIn Jobs. Helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. I've used LinkedIn as an employee looking for jobs. It's been great. It's an easy place to go post the jobs. A few clicks and you can make a free job post. Boom, boom, boom. It's all right there. Easy to do on LinkedIn Jobs. Then add your job to your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. Spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools, screening questions, make it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make sure you're checking out the Ultimate Pro Basketball Preview. Once you're done with this podcast, go to the 6-episode extravaganza. Get yourself ready for the NBA season. Local team experts like me, I'm on there, and the NBA insiders of the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey all combined into one ultimate NBA preview. Search for the Ultimate Pro NBA Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the Celtics, now that they've got a few days heading into the final preseason game on Friday, let's dip into the mailbag. It's usually a Mailbag Monday. We can get some mailbag questions out throughout the week because there's not going to be a whole lot to talk about out of practices. We'll talk about whatever there is out of practices. I'll make sure you're completely up to date on all your Celtics coverage. But great time. Go to johnkaralis.com/mailbag, johnkaralis.com/mailbag to submit your questions. That's how I answer my questions. I have people who've commented in the YouTube comments made a great point. You could feed the algorithm like I keep asking you to do by asking people to submit questions. I know, but also those questions end up all over the place. This is just, sorry. This is me and my brain. This is my brain at work. And this is the only way I can organize it. I apologize. There's just the best way for me. And you want the best thing for me because then I can answer your questions. Anyway, Mike J says, hey, this might be a little bit of a stretch, I guess, but do you think the Celtics could or should run a box and one if we run Tatum or Grant at the 5 often? Feel like we have a rare and perfect lineup to run zones this season. I love the idea of running zones. And I think in the small lineup, zone is, and I've mentioned this last week with Tom Westerholm, small lineup, zone makes a lot of sense. You're going to be switching everything anyway. So I would go to a zone in those situations, especially out of bounds, because it's just too easy to run some actions, switch. Big guy turns and pins Derek White down like Mason Plumlee did. You get it into him, you draw a foul on Derek White. Now, I've made the point in the past, hey, if you want to run your offense through a big like Mason Plumlee, when you're a high-powered offense like the Charlotte Hornets, they're not good, but they can score the ball. And you say, hey, fine. Okay, that is fine. I agree that, like, that, I think that's true. However, you don't want it to result in fouls on Derek White or other guys, because you don't want, first of all, you just don't want to put a guy into foul trouble because you want to run a small lineup out there. Secondly, you put the team into the bonus. You don't want to play like 5 minutes of small ball and draw 3 fouls and then you get out of that in the last 3 or 4 minutes of a quarter, you're putting the team on the free throw line. So there is a back and forth. So how does the zone fix that? Zone defense fixes that by keeping the players you want on a certain spot on the floor in that spot. You get the benefits of switching because when you switch, you're essentially playing a sort of zone anyway, because you're not following the guy. You're going to a certain area and then you're coming back. But it does pull guys out. So if you wanted Tatum to start on the big, let's say, or Grant Williams if you're playing Grant, then I think the zone works because you just say, hey, if we're playing a 2-3, if it's Grant, you plant him in the middle and your other guys on the other side of each side of the lane. You're still kind of guarding whoever comes past you and sort of switching, but you're not, it's not like Grant is being pulled up to the perimeter and switch. And he's way out. And now you've got Derek White down low. You're keeping those guys in that spot on the floor. So I do believe that there are places to run zone defense, especially when you run this small ball lineup out there. Nathan, just to fold Nathan in, he says Tatum at the 5. Why worry about Tatum playing the 5 when we go small? Wouldn't the best be Smart, Brogdon, Brown, Tatum, and Grant Williams? It's a little closer, he says, to the Golden State Warriors death lineup, referencing what we talked about before on the podcast, comparing small lineups to the Golden State death lineup. The difference is there still is no Draymond out there, and the having Grant, sure, it creates a big who is strong enough to guard bigs, but he's just not. He doesn't give you the same. He's nowhere near the same defender as Draymond, and he's nowhere near the same facilitator as Draymond. That's what made that lineup so damn good for the Warriors. So, but yeah, you can go Smart, Brogdon, Brown, Tatum, Grant. That is absolutely a doable lineup. You could go, if you wanted to go with Derek White, you could do that. By the way, I thought it was funny that Joe Mazzulla was like, yeah, we didn't practice that. It just sort of happened. And we're like, oh, okay. Didn't practice it. Sure. No problem. But it has potential. It has some level of potential. I don't think we're going to see it much. We certainly are not going to see it against the Sixers. Except maybe when Joel Embiid's off the floor, maybe you try that out. Maybe once Joel goes off the floor, you throw a lineup like that out there, and you put a lot of pressure on the other guys. So, but defensively, zone, I like that idea. I really do like that idea. Keeping it with Tatum, Michael K says, I was wondering what you think of Tatum's sidestep 3. Is it as bad as I think it is? Somebody keeping stats on this thing. Do I just need to wait for the second half of the season for him to find his shot? So the slow start is certainly problematic for Jayson Tatum. And look, it's the preseason, so we don't even, to be fair, know that he's actually starting slow, because even though he's not hitting anything in the preseason, it's the regular season stats that count. As far as the sidestep 3 goes, I think it's fine. It is commonplace now. 10 years ago, I would have been like, what the hell are you doing? What is that thing? No one should be stepping sideways to shoot forward. You step into your shots, not sideways in your shots. But this is the NBA now, and guys work on that shot, and I think that shot is fine. He'll go through a stretch where he makes 10 of those in a row or something. So I don't think it's that bad. I don't know about the stats on the. I certainly don't have stats on the sidestep 3s. I wonder if the NBA's tracking stats will start to try to track those. Tracking stats are a little bit messy because they're still not fully accurate. I mean, there are times where the cameras read a guy in a certain spot on the floor and he's not really there. So my advice as far as the Tatum sidestep is get used to it. Just buy into it, because I think it's the best way for him to create some space. And it's something that they work on a lot, even though it's not my favorite shot, but it's something that it's fine. It's fine. So up next, question about Jaylen Brown, the coach, and arguing with the refs, but it's not what we're used to. That's coming up next. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs this season. That includes football. That includes the Patriots beating the Lions. That includes whatever football you want to watch, college, pros. It's all there, so you can find all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting, in-game betting, very popular thing, up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. That includes Major League Baseball now in the playoffs, MMA, boxing, golf, NBA, obviously. It's all there at BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events. Use your mobile device, head on over to betonline.net, learn more at BetOnline, where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. All right, let's finish off this mailbag, shall we? We're going to start with Andrew, who says, loved your reporting on Jaylen Brown teaching Kabengele's class at Pick and Roll School. It reinforced my belief that Jaylen Brown would make a great coach. Do you think there's a way he would stay in Boston after his playing career is over? I've started to assume he would pursue non-basketball work after his time in the NBA is done. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, first of all, we have to hope that he stays in Boston for the entirety of his playing career, which is just rare, and you can't assume that at all. So I hate to put that little negative spin on this question, but let's assume the best. Let's assume that he does sign a new contract. He stays here for the majority of his career, if not all of his career. I don't know that he wants to be in the NBA full time. I certainly can't speak for him. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe he thinks one thing now and he'll do something different later. I agree with Andrew. I think he has bigger plans. I don't see Jaylen Brown as an NBA lifer. I think if I had to guess that after his playing career, he will do something business-wise and explore his entrepreneurial spirit with his personal brand, or considering how much money he stands to make investing in other brands. I can absolutely see Jaylen Brown being a guy who uses his NBA fortune, and let's face it, he's in line to make a ton of money. He's going to make $30-40 million a year plus, maybe 50 considering the new TV deal. He's going to make a significant amount of money. He stands to make a ton of money in endorsements if he wants to pursue more endorsement type stuff. He hasn't really, but he can. I can see Jaylen Brown taking his money, his fortune, and investing in Black-owned businesses and those types of projects, or educational pursuits, as far as starting foundations for educational programs in underserved communities, either in Boston, back home in the Atlanta area, or both. Or maybe something bigger, maybe trying to rally people in a bigger national type of program. I think when I pictured Jaylen Brown being done with playing, he certainly could coach. I think when I saw that Kabengele Pick and Roll School, which, by the way, I hope people go to bostonsportsjournal.com. I know it's a subscription site, but the Kabengele profile that I wrote is free. I hope you go read my feature on Fiondo Cabangeli at bostonsportsjournal.com. That is free, unlocked for everybody. So please go check that out. If you like it, maybe you subscribe to Boston Sports Journal. If not, I hope you just like the story. Anyway, side note. Jaylen went over to Cabangeli and just said, hey, you're working with me now. You're working with me and we're working on pick and rolls. And Jaylen said, I wanted to get some pick and roll work in. And Cabangeli said that he saw Jaylen Brown coming over. He's like, oh, I got to clear out because Jaylen wants to use this hoop. Like he was like, I know my place. I'm below Jaylen Brown on the totem pole. He wants to use this hoop. I'm going to go to a different hoop. And Jaylen's like, no, you're working with me. And Jaylen said, I wanted to get more pick and roll ball handler work in. And then I started to teach him some pick and roll stuff. And it was kind of like a general, you help me, I'll help you type of thing, which was really nice to see. I think Jaylen Brown has done a tremendous job at mentoring younger players. I think he wants to be a role model in a lot of sense for a lot of people, even people in the NBA, and be a person that younger players can go to and say, hey, can you help me out here? So he could be a coach if he wanted to. And who knows, maybe by the time the end of his career comes around, he might say, hey, I kind of do want to do coaching stuff. I can see him being maybe an individual coach, kind of like, hey, if you're up and coming young wing and you want some individual work like Hakeem Olajuwon does and other guys do, like he would go to T-Mac and, Tracy McGrady and say, hey, like they've worked together. I can see him doing that kind of stuff. You can hire him as an NBA player and he'll do some work with you. But I can 100% see Jaylen Brown doing community work, community-based work, investing in underserved communities, investing in businesses that generally have trouble getting investment money. I can see him kind of having a hand in a lot of these things. And yeah, I think helping a lot of businesses, helping a lot of small business owners in the communities around Boston and around Atlanta and in other parts of the country kind of get off their feet and succeed, where, an investment from somebody can be the difference between a business succeeding and a business failing, right? Like you just don't have enough money to get through the first rough patch. And I can just, I don't want to go too crazy, but and kind of draw this out too much. I can totally see Jaylen being that guy. So that's where I would assume Jaylen goes. Finally, Reginald says, it's more of a statement. Sort of. Can we address that the Celtics are not arguing about calls to the referees? I like that they just get back on defense. Can we? Can we please address that? Thank you, Reginald. I've been wanting to talk about this, and I keep forgetting. I should write something down on the back of my hand. I'd be like, talk about the refs. Not complaining about the refs. For people who are listening, I had a pen in my hand. I was playing to the camera on YouTube. I realized as I put it down, like, the people who are listening don't realize what I just did. I pretended to write what I just said on the palm of my hand. I don't want to, I'm playing to YouTube. I'm playing to the video. I don't want to leave the people who are listening out, because more people do listen than watch. Pretty soon, I think it's going to be about a 50-50 split. But even so, there are thousands and thousands of people who listen. I apologize. I really do. Actually, I want to apologize if you think, geez, this guy's saying things and doing things on the YouTube and he's leaving us out. Don't want to do that. Anyway, that's what that little bit was. The Celtics are not arguing calls. Jayson Tatum, especially. I have not seen the signature Jayson Tatum arms up. What? I've seen him start to complain. I've seen guys start to complain. But so far in 3 preseason games, 2 for the regulars, I've not seen the level of complaint. But Tatum and Grant Williams especially. Now, they have taken time to talk to the officials afterwards. And when there's a stoppage, Grant has certainly been adamant, persistent even in his belief that he didn't do anything wrong. But there's not the individual complaints so far, and we'll hopefully see that carry that into the season. Reginald, thank you so much for bringing that up, because if this turns around, if this is something that sticks and the Celtics are just not going to be the ones that complain to the refs, this is going to be amazing, because it's just annoying. It's annoying. And too often guys were complaining and getting beat long. I wonder, you know what? I'm going to ask these guys. I'm going to ask them in practice on Monday about not complaining to the refs. I wonder if they put together like a video. Oh, here's Grant Williams getting beat because he was complaining to a ref. Here's Jayson Tatum getting beat because he wasn't complaining to a ref, because he was complaining to a ref. I wonder if they put all that stuff together and be like, you cost yourself 8 points. You cost the team 8 points in this game or in this series or this week because you couldn't resist complaining to the refs and your guy took off and he's the one who scored. So we're going to keep a list. If I were the coach, I'd be like, okay, no problem. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to track points, all the points that you give up because you're complaining to the refs. And each week I'm going to fine you $100 per point that you give up because you didn't get back and you're complaining to the refs. We're going to put the film together and we're going to put it out there and we're going to say, here's the example, 2 points. That's $200 fine. Let me tell you something. Even the guys making $300 million, whatever, huge contracts, $30 million a year, $40 million a year. You start taking $500, $600 at a time. They don't want to give up that money. If I were a coach, that's what I would do. And I wonder if they did something similar or at least highlighted it to a point where it was hammered home. Don't complain. I would love to do that. I would love to. You gave up 12 points this month. So it's $100 a point. That's $1,200. Put it in the pot. And at the end of the year, you use it to like pay for, I don't know, use it to pay for a team dinner or something like that. Teams do that crap all the time. They find players and it's minimal amount and it goes into a pot. And then at the end of the month or at the end of the year, they say, okay, this is the fine money. We're doing this. We're doing that. Or sometimes you give it to charity, whatever. NBA fines go to charity, but team fines like that, they can do whatever. Anyway, thanks for the questions, everybody. Appreciate it. JohnKaralis.com/mailbag. Try to mix them in. I did Mailbag Mondays over the course of the off season. Kind of harder to do them now because there's games and you just can't do a Mailbag Monday when there's a game to talk about. But I'll try to sprinkle them in as often as I can. Apologize if I can't get to every question, but send them in and subscribe to the show if you're new. If you're new to the show, hope you're enjoying it. Again, you want to listen to the show in the car, on your way to work, in the shower, walking the dog, whatever. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You get a podcast app, iTunes, Spotify, whatever app you use, it's all there. You want to watch the show or you just cruising around YouTube, put it on and then walk away, stream it to your TV? YouTube's a great place to do it. You can ring that bell so you get notified. I do publish 5 days a week, so you can kind of keep going to it. But always like it. I would love it if you like the videos and comments. Feed that algorithm. The more comments that it gets, YouTube's algorithm says, oh, people love this because they're commenting. So please comment on the show on the YouTube page. Just helps me out. I don't ask you for money. I sell the ads, or the network sells the ads. I read the ads, but this is it. If you feed the algorithm, that's basically payment enough for me. So please do that. Share the podcast. Tell your friends, family, everybody that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.